Hey guys, welcome to SuTube. It is September the 10th, and today I'm going to be taking a look at Ethereum, Bitcoin, as well as this CME Futures Gap that I've been referring to in the past. If you guys think that sounds like something you're interested in, I think you should definitely check out what I have to say here. Alright guys, gonna start off by looking at the 4-hour chart on Ethereum. You guys know that I was pointing out this green triangle here, and we absolutely did get a breakout to the upside of that, and we are even consolidating above it, just like I said that I was hoping to see. But what I was more so hoping was that we were going to blast through this yellow box, because I had warned you that this yellow box may act as resistance because it was support on the way up. So I would have loved to see us blast through and then consolidate on top of it rather than inside of it. One thing though I want to point out is this daily candle close. We did end up closing above this sideways trading range, which is great to see. If it doesn't hold, I think we're going to have quite a plunge if we drop this line of support here. But all in all, the fact that we got this daily close, especially above this purple trend line, I want to point that out to you guys. Sorry, I'm going to zoom out on the daily here. If I zoom way back to June 26, 2019, that is the very top of this wick here. You can see even further back, it was tested as resistance on August 9th of 2018. And then on this way up, you can see that we turned it from a bit of resistance to a bit of a support range, kind of in that cluster there. And we did get a candle body close above that line, so we're going to find out how significant that line is. The fact that we got a close above it and never got rejected immediately again is great, but yeah, I don't know if this trend is going to continue. If we zoom into the shorter time frames, let's go with the 15-minute. You can see here that we did have this red line of support mapped out, and we began, as soon as we traded below it, we've been acting as resistance since. So I wouldn't be all that surprised if we do end up plunging down a little bit, but we're going to have to see how that happens. I think if we do end up holding this green triangle or even this yellow box that we're currently trading in, I think we could have quite a large bullish move coming up in the near future. But if we do drop this, I'm thinking this yellow line of support around 361, 362. If we drop back below 360, I think Ethereum's going to go on a little tumble for a little bit. So we'll have to see how that plays out. If we do end up breaking back to the upside of this yellow resistance box here, I'm going to pull a Fibonacci extension from our local high to low here, just to point out some levels of potential resistance. Would be the 382, which you can see is actually what we're struggling with right now, so that's not an overly bullish sign. And then the 0.618 would be closer to 420, 421, somewhere in there, which would match up with this little bit of trading cluster here, so that would also make sense. So if we get moved to the upside, those are some, what I would consider some important levels there. If we could start consolidating above the, let's say, 378, somewhere in there, I think it would be reasonable to expect we could be coming up to the 420, so that could be, let's just take a measured move there. That would be a 10-11% move. So if that was played with leverage and it all works out, that's quite a good move there. Of course, guys, before I go any further, you know that none of this is financial advice. I'm not a professional. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm only showing you my own opinions and the speculative plays that I'm making in the market. So you guys do your own research. You guys work hard for your money, and you should know the risks involved with trading in these markets. Hopping over to the daily chart on my Bitstamp Bitcoin chart, guys, you can see that we're still holding my level of support along this parallel channel. I'm not overly confident in it holding too much longer because, again, we haven't retested the 0.382 Fibonacci retracement, which would be closer to 9,200. As well, we haven't retested my white triangle line from my giant weekly triangle that I pointed out a million times now. If we do hold this level of support, I think it would be reasonable to assume we would test the top of this yellow pattern, and that would work out well with the upward sloping support that we had of this range here that we got rejected and dropped back down below. It would make total sense to have this support turn into a resist flip. Whether or not we even make it that high, here's another thing to kind of be alarmed about, is the horizontal support that we had in this little trading range here. You can see we are currently trading below it in this price range here. So if we are already acting as resistance with this kind of, it was almost a little bit of a head and shoulders played out, that's generally not what you want to see. However, if we get a daily candle close back above this, I think we would definitely be looking to test the top of that yellow range. Another thing to watch out for, guys, if I switch over to the CME Futures chart on Bitcoin here, guys, you guys know that I have been pointing out, or more so mentioning, the CME Futures Gap, and I haven't actually loaded up the chart before, but you can see here when we went on our bit of a parabolic run there, we created this gap in the futures chart, and generally these gaps tend to fill, and right now we've only traded down to about this level here, so we still have about 98.45 down to 96.80, 96.70, somewhere in there to fill of this gap. Just to show you what I'm talking about, I'll go back in the chart just to show you what I mean here. Here's a good example. We have this gap here. You can see that we filled it right here. Sorry, this is going to take a little bit here. Even a gap like this, although it took a while, we did end up filling it over here, guys. So basically anywhere that I pick out any random gap in the chart here, you can see that it generally gets filled. It generally gets filled pretty quick. You can see even here, like we had this little gap, we tested back down to the bottom of that gap. You can see that almost every time that I'm seeing these gaps tend to fill with price action. Here's another good one. We have a good gap there, and you can see this wick filled it as well as all this trading action. You get my point, guys. So as I've been saying in every video, this gap does not have to fill, but it would make perfect sense if it would, because basically every gap in the chart does. Not every gap, and sometimes it takes a lot longer than you'd expect. So in that case, we might not fill that gap for months, years, who knows, but generally they fill pretty quick. And the fact that we haven't retested my yellow resist to support flip of my macro weekly triangle, I think it would make perfect sense to hammer through the rest of this gap and then test my triangle. If that can hold, I think at that point we would blast back up this yellow box immediately and continue to the upside, if this white box support line of the triangle can hold, that is. And of course, none of this has to happen. I'm going to zoom into my 15-minute chart for BitMEX, guys, on Bitcoin, and you can see here that I pulled a Fibonacci from our bottom here around 9,800 all the way to our top at around 10.5 thousand. And actually, speaking of that, that's another thing I want to point out about that red horizontal line, is that 10.5K region. You know that I was pointing it out for months that it was our macro resistance, and we were hoping for that support flip to hold, but the fact that we are trading below it again, not a great bullish indicator there. But hopping back over to the 15-minute chart, just looking at very quick trading action, I would expect now that since we're having a bit of a dump here, you can see one thing from a bearish perspective is that this is kind of forming what looks like a bit of a rounding top. Obviously anything can change. We are still setting higher lows, so that is bullish, but I would assume right now we would at least be coming back to test the 382, and if that doesn't hold, I would be expecting to hit at least the 0.618, but we'll have to see with that as well. Obviously doesn't have to happen. We could just take the fuck off right now, or we could absolutely plummet through these levels, through this box, fill the gap, test my triangle, and that could all happen very quickly. Um, Obviously, it doesn't have to, and you shouldn't be chasing those parabolic moves that are going to play out immediately because, I mean, a lot of these moves obviously have to consolidate and bounce around, and if you're playing with too high of leverage and looking for a massive move, you're probably going to get burned. Um, with that, guys, I think I've kind of rambled on long enough once again. So if you appreciate this content, give me a thumbs up, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, what you're seeing in the charts, what you like, what you don't like, all that sort of stuff. Any interaction is good, guys. Any feedback is good. This is still a new channel, so I like to hear from you guys. Speaking of that, pretty excited that today my video had, I think, the most views that I've ever had in any of my videos, and it happened in less than a day, so that's pretty cool to see. I don't know, it must have been something with the YouTube algorithm or something like that, but speaking of that, if you could please just, again, hit that like button and just let me know what you're thinking, and that would really help out the algorithm and hopefully get more views out there. So that would be great. The channel and myself much appreciate it. One more line I would like to point out, actually, if I were to be looking for a bit of a bullish snipe on Bitcoin, I would like to see how this downward sloping trend line would play out. I would like to get at least a third touch point, because right now we only have two. I would love to see a third touch point and then a close above, and then carry on from there to get involved with the long on that. So anyways, once again, I think that's long enough. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and until next time, stay safe, my friends. Peace.